I'm not interested in power for, a stately home or so that I can have, a television channel or anything like that.
Right. Do you sort of need to feed off that to a certain extent?
Feed off what?
Off the power, the feeling that you can actually
Well, it does
have your voice heard.
Well, it doesn't make things more difficult, put it that way. No, it does make things easier, I must say.
Right. Okay. Well, what would you most like to do with it? What you've got?
Well, there's a great deal to do. Obviously, we haven't covered as much ground as is possible. We have to visit other countries. I mean, things as basic as that, which takes time, and is quite tends to corrode the health somewhat. So it is very time-consuming, and it's very taxing to do those kind of things. And obviously, because we're on an independent label, it's much more difficult because we have virtually no facilities whatsoever to do anything. So just really arranging a trip to Spain is takes up a full year, almost.
Right. To digress again, I don't know if you've heard that Mick Jagger has been cast as Dorian in the Hollywood production of A Picture of Dorian Gray. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I'm totally speechless. I mean, if you told me that Bugs Bunny had been cast in the part, I would be less shocked. I think it's the Dallas mentality, really. Let's get as many famous faces in here as possible, regardless of what happens to the script.
Okay, getting back to the Smiths. Do you think you'll get sick of the standard vocals, guitar, bass, drums lineup and want to go into
opera?
No. I mean, you bring in some keyboards or more strings and things like that.
Yes. We want to do that. Yes, and we will do that on the next LP.
Why was Shakespeare's Sister not on Meet His Murder?
Because
commercial reasons.
No. It happened after Meet His Murder. We just walked into the studio one day and it just simply appeared, and the LP had already been released, so it was quite impossible to get it on.
Why not release something off the record?
Well, that's a good question. That's a very tricky question. It all boils down to record company politics. I think finally something is about to be released. A track called That Joke Isn't Funny Anymore. A little late, I realise, but it's not a bad old song anyway. So, but I must say I think something should have been released much earlier. But at the time when the LP came out, Rough Trade were quite adamant that an older track, How Soon Is Now, be re-released in this country as an A-side, and it was, and of course it was much to be regretted because it didn't really do anything substantial.
Still a fine song. Still a fine song.
It's not bad.
Does it worry you that you've got so much influence, as it were?
No, I mean, would it worry you? No, it's nice to have influence. I mean, obviously, if everybody thought I was a total, simpleton, I'd worry then. No, influence is it's quite a nice thing to have. Better than having, acne or something.
How will you know when you've come to the end of your
I'll probably
life?
be lying on the middle of the floor, and I'll probably weigh a stone. Probably. No, I think I'll know. I mean, one just instinctively knows these things. There's a little bell inside one's head that rings, a danger bell, rings occasionally. I'll know. I mean, when I start grappling and I start stuttering and really being hesitant about what I'm trying to do, and then I'll just, jump out the window, probably.
Do you consciously analyse everything you do in the direction you go?
Yes, I do indeed. It's just a matter of being thorough, really, because there's so many persuasive influences that surround you in this business. So many people who are dying to get you into, a Salvation Army suit or something, or whatever, or dress you up as an orange. It's quite frightening, so you have to cling to your principles.
Right. You've got quite a fascination with films from the 60s, I believe, like The L-Shaped Room and so on.
Yes,
what is it about them that you like?
I'm afraid that they probably will remind me of my childhood, because I lived in lots of those circumstances, and I also think that I gaze upon it fondly because it was the first time in the entire history of film where regional dialects were allowed to come to the fore, and people were allowed to talk about squalor and general depression, and it wasn't necessarily a shameful thing. It was quite positive. I mean, if you notice films, British films of the late 1950s, even films which deal with army themes or war themes, all the people who are in the army or whatever all have wonderfully crisp theatrical voices, but yet from I think Room at the Top of Saturday Night and Sunday Morning onwards, people are just allowed to be real instead of being glamorous and Hollywoodian, if that is a word, and I sincerely hope it isn't. Sounds awful.
Right, okay. The New York Dolls, what was it about them that you liked?
Oh, I still haven't a clue. I'm still trying to work that one out. Well, the music industry hated them, and that was good enough for me. I thought, well, yes, that's the group for me. The music industry couldn't wait to get rid of the New York Dolls. They were quite clamorous and raucous, and so many people said they couldn't actually play, which was not entirely true. But you must remember, throughout the periods of 73 and 74 when they existed, they were quite dank times, and they were quite stylish times, almost offensively stylish, should I say. And the New York Dolls were just the antidote to everything refined, and I thought that was wonderful.
Right. Have you ever met any of them?
Yes, I did. I met the drummer and the guitarist a long time ago, and they were completely unfriendly.
Really?
Mm.
But why did that infatuation sort of end?
I think, they broke up in 1975, and after that there wasn't really anything to retain one's interest apart from the 2 LPs that they had made. So, they just faded, really. And I still have vague fond memories, but it's not really terribly important to me. I think they were the single most important group to me as an adolescent.
Right. Do you look back on your adolescence with fondness?
No, it was a dreadful time. It was an awful period. I certainly can't deny that. It was quite very difficult, very isolated, very alienating, and all those usual things that teenagers complain of. But I certainly complain of them now.
Right. Your interviews are all, I hope, very honest, and especially the early interviews that you read. They get right down to tin tacks, as it were.
Well, you could put it that way, yes.
And then you've had it thrown back at you, and people have labelled you as being sort of arrogant and conceited. I mean,
yes, it's really unbelievable. I mean, yes, it's shocking. People find me quite uncomfortably honest, but this is only because they're used to, quite cold individuals dominating the music scene, for the want of a better term. And if you really want to talk quite openly and drop your defences, as it were, it's seen as being quite unnerving, because people just simply aren't used to it. It's like if somebody sits next to you on the bus and says, I really like your jacket or your trousers, you immediately run away, which is the wrong thing to do. But it's the same way within music. People are just so used to this glossy nothingness. And also, if you have a degree of intellect, you actually run the risk of making your critics and the journalists seem quite dull in comparison, so they don't like it. Fools.
Well, you've got somebody from the NME waiting, so you can
oh, yes, indeed.
do battle with them.
Yes.
Do you celebrate your birthday?
Well, it's in a few days, and I certainly do not. No, I never have. It's just, it's just another day, really.
Right. What purpose did the time when you were, shall we say, reclusive? What purpose did that serve?
A tremendous purpose in quite a perverted way, because for me it was almost like being in the army. I don't know why I'm laughing, because I'm sure the army isn't a very pleasurable experience. It was like being in the army. It was like going through this. It was like training for the Olympics, almost going through these years of preparation. And I think that because those years existed, I now can cope with what's happening to me quite successfully. and I'm not easily tripped up. So yes, it was like a period of long, intense self-development, and I'm glad it happened for those reasons. I don't think I'd be glad if I was still there now, but I'm not, so I'm chuckling.
Right. You've not done any videos at all?
No.
You're not even interested in doing just like some live footage and just touting that around?
No, we haven't done a thing. In America, the record company put a video together and released it, and naturally it's quite abhorrent and extremely bad taste, but it's nothing to do with us. We'll never do that kind of a glossy promotional video. Now, having said that, it would be nice to tread into film somewhat, but only in a very intellectual way, not in a commercial, not as a sales tool, something quite artistic and quite intricate, really. I'd like to meddle with film somehow. Mess all the film up.
Right. Well, any particular ideas? Do you want it to
yes,
be
I've got many.
A storyline with Morrissey playing the lead acting part?
Well, yes, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Not really. Yes, I do have a few ideas. I think to reel them off now would be quite pretentious, because I really firmly don't believe in talking about things until they're almost happening, because it's quite fatal, because if they don't happen, you're left to answer for a lot of bleak moments in your life. But I think video, yes, we've outlived that, I think.
Right, okay. Australia, are you ever likely to tour there? Is that part of your plan?
Oh God, good grief, yes, most definitely. The only problem really is actually getting there, because it's so far away, and as you might not know, I do have a fear of flying. I mean, it's almost embarrassing to utter those words. It sounds so absurd. I mean, I've tried to be hypnotized and silly things like that, and it really basically hasn't worked. But I'm trying to figure this one out, if I can go to perhaps Singapore and then on to Mauritius or somewhere, and then just land in Australia somehow. As you can see, it's still very very embryonic situation. I'm trying to work it out.
Right, how far ahead do you plan?
About 3 or 4 months, really, not terribly far.
So the Smiths Corporation doesn't sort of have your movements mapped out for the rest of
No, there
this
isn't
year?
a Smiths Corporation, which makes things easy and difficult, because it's really largely left down to Johnny and I. So it's just really finding time to sit down and say, well, what exactly should we do next? But there's certainly no corporation.
Right. Do you feel under pressure constantly?
Yes, I do. Constantly.
How do you cope with that?
I don't know. I mean, you just have to learn to deal with it, really. It can't really be conquered, I don't think, because, like it or not, things are there to be done. And of course, these are the complaints that most people don't really like to hear about. But I can't deny that it's very, very difficult to keep on top of the situation. But I try.
What devices do you use to?
I unplug the telephone. I disconnect the bell on the front door. I close the curtains, and I just simply lie on the bed and listen to a Walkman or something.
Right.
You seem very bored with that reply.
No, that's fine. You don't sort of.
I expect these are the bits that get chopped.
Okay, well, why do interviews at all? I mean, surely you should. If you're going to take the line, you're not going to do much other promotional stuff.
Well, because I take that line, interviews are necessary, because without interviews we wouldn't have any sense of presence whatsoever, because we avoid so much television and radio and all other aspects of the media. If we don't actually do interviews, where on earth are we? Like the uninitiated working woman in the street doesn't really know that we exist.
Unless she hears it on the radio.
Well, exactly, yes, but radios are so rare these days. No, we have to do interviews, and I quite like them sometimes.
Right. Okay, what are you doing with all the money you're making?
Well, I'm trying to find it. That's what I'm doing with it. Next question.
Right, okay, that's...
Oh, do I have to elaborate? I'm certainly not rich by any means. I think I'm I'm much poorer than other people of my status for unknown reasons.
Scott Perry.
Well, can't you say that a bit louder? We're a little bit more we're poorer than most, I think. Why is it always so embarrassing talking about money?
I don't know, people just have this thing about not knowing what other people earn.
I wonder
guess.
why, though. Can you answer that?
No, maybe they feel some jealousy, or they.
Oh, well, that's okay then. As long as it's that.
I don't know. Can you answer it?
No, I can't answer that question. I don't really know. I mean, people are so guarded. I mean, people never talk about money. It's like when you first come into the music industry. You're never allowed to ask, well, I'm actually getting paid for this. You're supposed to be so humble and artistic that you'll accept anything, but of course I never was. But I think a lot of people are, and but I'm quite comfortable. I can't deny that. I'm certainly not poor, but I'm certainly not no threat to royalty at the moment.
Does your mother still take as close an interest as she did when I last spoke to you?
Yes, she certainly does. Yes, even closer, in fact. Yes, she's quite she's concerned in every way.
Right. Is she still entirely supportive?
Absolutely entirely supportive, entirely, which is a great help. It's a great help.
Has that been essential, do you think?
Yes, it has. It has for me because I live with her mainly, and for that reason it helps. I mean, I think everybody ultimately needs some sense of reassurance from obviously the people who are close to them. So I think if she was disinterested or if she found the whole situation awkward, it would be quite hard.
Right. Your professed celibacy, no doubt, has been the subject of many letters from people. Have you had lots of advances?
Well, only handwritten advances, which of course are quite meaningless, really. I find that when I'm out and about, that people quite regrettably they approach, but they keep a particular distance. People are quite wary for some reason. They find it quite unbelievable. I think it's quite difficult for people to understand, especially me, I might add. But yes, I've had lots and lots of, obviously, I mean, not obviously, but absolutely cases and cases and cases full of letters from people saying, well, I'm here, come and get me. I'll be waiting tonight. I'll be lying on the settee covered in feathers, which is which is quite worrying when it comes from the woman next door or something.
Right, okay. I think that's about it. What I wanted to ask, that's what I've got the notes for. Short and sweet.
So what's happening to this?
This